A lot of D&D players spend way too long on characters' backstories, hope the plot will finally touch them at some point, and end up playing a frustrating and forgettable character. I've been there before, so to understand how to fix it, I spent a long time looking at what professional storytellers do differently. And I found that they actually start with a single question, which made my characters 10x better. It is the key to 3 very powerful techniques we'll cover in this video to make your own character unforgettable. What do I want from the other characters at this table, and what stands in the way of getting it? It seems simple enough, but unfortunately, if you just stop there at the surface level, you won't be able to use it. The question is only useful if we take a closer look, because each word carries a lot of weight, and that's what we're going to do in this video. Say there is a character who wants revenge on the Empire. It implies that they will have to wait for the plot. Instead, if we say the character wants the paladin to see them as more than a criminal, we imply that they will have something that they can do every time they interact with said paladin if they follow the techniques we'll discuss in a minute. The first example is what we could call a story goal, and the second one is what I like to refer to as a scene engine, which is a lot more powerful. Now, quick reality check. If you've actually played D&D before, you might already see a problem here. Quite often, you don't already know the other characters when you're making yours. So how are you supposed to design wants around characters that you don't know about yet? These techniques we'll discuss originally come from fiction, where one person controls everything in the story. And yes, D&D and other TTRPGs are different, but they're so useful. I think we have to find a way to work around this. And I believe we can. We just have to adapt using session 0, or however you want to call it. Maybe in your specific situation, it's a simple group chat before you start playing. The goal isn't to have everything planned. I'm not telling you to go and create an elaborate shared backstory with the other players. You just need one thread that involves at least one other person at the table from the moment play begins. Here's how you do it in practice. You design your character with what I call a portable want. For example, something like, I need to earn respect from people who seem to have their life together, or I want to prove myself to anyone who underestimates me. Then, when you learn who the other characters are, you identify who in the party best fits that role. Maybe it's a wizard who carries themselves in a way that suggests that they've got everything figured out, or an old fighter who clearly thinks you're some noob. This allows you to link your abstract want to a target and gives you direction. Okay, so now we have the main question, and we know how we'll adapt it to our D&D or TTRPG situation. But we can't stop there, because this question unlocks 3 things that typical character creation tends to miss every time. First, it unlocks a way to make sure those wants actually generate scenes instead of making you wait for the plot. Second, it gives you a way to design your character for collaboration, so the other people can acquire you as a target too. And so your character is part of an ensemble and does not suffer from main character syndrome. And third, it gives you the ability to create friction that makes the game more interesting for everyone without accidentally becoming that one problem player. Let's start with what makes a want strong enough to move situations forward. Because I don't think all wants are created equal. You can point your want at another character and still end up waiting if it doesn't have enough weight behind it. And so to help us do this properly, I think we can take a look at Aaron Sorkin, the writer behind The West Wing and The Social Network, among other cool things, He uses a 3-question framework for this. What does this character want? What stands in their way? And what tactics will they use to overcome it? And what specifically interests me is the tools he uses to answer those questions. We started to talk about the first one, and we'll make it truly bulletproof in a minute. But I think we need to tackle the tactics question now, because it will help us with the other 2. I think a lot of people miss this. You don't reveal character through backstory. I mean, not really, but you do it by showing how someone pursues what they want. 2 characters can have the same wants and be completely different at the table, depending on their tactics. Let me give you a quick example. Let's imagine we have both a paladin and a warlock, and both want respect from someone in the party. So same want. But the paladin could earn it through visible sacrifice by standing in melee and taking hits for others, or, by giving away loot. And on the other hand, the warlock would earn it through results they get by using their skills like solving problems others can't or asking their patron for answers to very hard questions. It's all about the journey you take to the same destination. I talked about this portable want idea, so when you're building it, don't stop at what do I want from this other person. Always follow with how will my character try to get it? And to take it further, don't be afraid to dig a little bit, like will they be direct or subtle, confrontational or patient? Are they going to try and earn it or demand it? This already helps your character feel more alive. But what about the is the want strong enough idea we mentioned? If we go back to the Sorkin playbook for a second, he makes a distinction between a want and a need and defines them like this. A want is cool, but it's nice to have, and a need implies that something bad happens if you don't get it. In our I want respect example, if we don't add anything to it, it's not really a need yet. So how do we make it more extreme? An easy way is to just get more specific and include consequences. Like, I need respect because without external validation, I genuinely don't know if I have any worth. And boom, you have a need, and it generates urgency. But just to make really sure it is strong enough, we can use another one of Sorkin's ideas that people have called the pressing test. It boils down to asking, could your character easily give up on this want? If yes, the motivation lacks a bit of dramatic weight and won't automatically generate tension. So let's go back to a portable need. If the person the character targeted just ignored them forever, would they shrug and move on? Or would it piss them off and keep them awake at night? If you can just walk away from the need, you're a passenger. Not being able to is what makes the character a protagonist. Because protagonists are always in emotion, and the need makes that possible. Quick disclaimer though, this doesn't mean your character has to be completely obsessive. It just means the want has to cost something to abandon, ideally something very expensive from their perspective, and giving it up should kind of feel like losing a piece of themselves. So far so good, but if you paid attention to what I said earlier, I mentioned Sorkin had 3 questions, and you really need the third one to take full advantage of his method. What stands in their way? And this is where I think most people can get way better results by doing the opposite of what feels intuitive. Most people, when they try to do this, make the obstacle external to the character. It makes sense, right? The need is tied to someone else, so the obstacle must be too. If we go back to a respect example, from the point of view of the character, it tends to look like the paladin doesn't respect me because they don't know me yet, or the wizard does not trust me because I haven't proven myself. And these are fine, but there is a better way. What if the reason the character can't get the paladin's respect isn't actually the paladin, but the character? Maybe they use humor as a defense mechanism every time things get serious, or push people away before they can reject them. This is really cool, especially in a D&D or TTRPG context, because now you don't need the target of the need to do stuff. You can just roleplay every scene with a paladin with some kind of subtext. You need something, but you're the one who keeps getting in your own way. Maybe after a while, the paladin might even start to respect you, but you just can't let yourself have it and will do something that will disappoint them. I love this idea because we tend to talk about backstories a lot, but I always felt that word anchored roleplay in the past. It's all about stuff that happened before the game started. But when you do this, you create a way to allow you to act and make your character grow during play. Alright, this is useful, sure, but it's still a bit theoretical. So how do we go from this to actual things to do at the table to really make our characters 10x better? Because you can't fully know your character until you play them. The character will really emerge at the table in response to the action of other people. There's an acting technique developed by Sanford Meisner, a famous acting teacher, that flips on its head how most people think about characters. Many acting methods start by asking the actor to look inward. You take a dive inside yourself and mine your own emotions and memories. But Meisner suggests we should look outward, which works especially well for D&D. Say you're playing a fighter, and they need the respect of the party's ranger, because why would all the respect come from paladins, right? And say the ranger is some kind of grumpy veteran guy. You won't know exactly how that plays out until you start role-playing with a ranger. Maybe you initially plan to be confident and prove yourself through action, but then the ranger says something that makes the character feel bad. Meissner's idea is that when this happens, you should go with the flow and surprise yourself. Maybe, in that situation, your character makes a joke and tries to pretend it didn't sting. It wasn't planned. You discovered it. Meissner calls this the pinch and ouch principle. It's just like it sounds. If you're pinched, you ouch, meaning you respond with proportion to what you're given. For character creation, this means you spend some time on creating triggers. What gets under your character's skin? What do they desperately want to hear? What kind of stuff makes them defensive or soften or shut down? And then you try to relax and wait until one of them gets activated. The Breaking Bad writers used a version of this. Before every scene, they asked, where's Walt's head at? Meaning right now, in that specific scene. They forgot the plot and zoomed in. The more specific you can get, the better. Even if the character's main need is earn the ranger's respect. In a fight, their head might be at prove I'm not as useless as I just looked when I missed that shot. The situational motivation adds another layer on top of the main large need, which acts more like context. So just ask yourself, where's my character's head at right now? What do they want in the next 5 minutes? And just play that. But we have a problem now. We started by asking one central question and then pulled on the thread. But everything we've covered so far might sound like there is only place for harmony. And isn't that boring? You know, a character that just gets along? If you want your character to become one of those iconic ones, I think you really need them to create a certain kind of friction, because it takes everything we discussed to the next level. But before I go on, let me be absolutely clear about what I'm not saying. You're playing a collaborative game. Your attitude at the table matters, and you need to be fun to play with. Everything I'm about to say is built on top of that foundation, not instead of it. Friction is not PvP or saying this is what my character would do. I'm not advising anyone to play lone wolf edgelords who refuse to cooperate or find it cool to steal from the other characters. Like, I'm really not. Actually, I cover these kinds of behaviors in a free resource which allows you to avoid the most common character creation mistakes. And you can just get it by checking the link in the description. Those things aren't friction. They're just being bad at this. The kind of friction I'm going to talk about should be a gift you give the table that will make sessions more interesting for everyone. However you use the techniques we'll discuss in a second, you should always stay focused on each other's enjoyment. Alright, so to tell you how to actually build this, I want to tell you about this book. It was published in 1946 and it has a very cool title, The Art of Dramatic Writing. It really is a classic creative writing book. In the book, the author discusses a concept he calls the unity of opposites, which I really like. It's the idea that the best dramatic tension happens when the structure of what two characters want makes compromise impossible. In order to use this concept in D&D, we need to bend it a little, but we can use it to design characters with values that occasionally clash with the other ones. The key word here is occasionally. You pick one specific axis where your character will see things differently, and you make sure it's overshadowed by several ones where they agree with the rest of the party. An example would be a paladin with a code that says you should turn in criminals, and a rogue with a code that says you should be loyal to former guildmates. The characters can agree on most things, face danger together, and build trust. But if the party finds out a contact of the rogue plays a part in the evil plot they're investigating, these two characters can't both get what they want, and one of them will have to give up. Again, that does not mean they start a fight. The things the characters have in common are as real as the disagreement, and they weigh more, so the thing one of them will have to give up will just add a new layer to the relationship. Good friction is a pressure point that gets activated if and when the story touches it. The specificity is what makes sure it creates drama, not just dysfunction. So we started with a question. What do I want from the other characters at the table, and what stands in the way of getting it. And now you know why every word in that sentence matters. What do I want refers to a need, something that has real weight and can't be walked away from. To make from the other characters work in a D&D context, you need to make it portable by imagining the type of person who triggers this want, and then you find your target when you learn about the party and refine it. Having the need point at someone instead of the plot gives you something to play in every story beat and scene, not just when your DM decides to throw you a bone related to your backstory. What stands in the way does not refer only to external obstacles. The most memorable and useful ones are often internal. Then, to build on that foundation, you'll layer in the practical stuff by focusing on immediate responses and building triggers. And you add a bit of friction spice, on top of it, but never too much. And boom, you now have a great character. But, this makes roleplay easier, sure, but what happens during combat? Because that will happen, right? It would be a shame to have a great character which turns into a dice-rolling robot the minute the DM calls initiative. I believe both DMs and players can avoid this by watching what Matt Mercer is doing. So click on this video next to find out how to make D&D combat feel epic.